Have you ever noticed how life feels more comfortable than ever? Yet financial stress seems just as common, if not worse. Most people today don't struggle because they're reckless. They struggle because modern life is designed to feel easy, comfortable, normal. And that comfort quietly turns into a financial liability. What's strange is that nothing looks wrong on the surface. Bills are paid, the fridge is full, the car starts every morning, yet there's a persistent feeling that money never quite settles. No breathing room, no real progress, just maintenance. This isn't a story about bad decisions or irresponsible people. It's about how everyday comfort, when layered slowly over time, changes the math of your life in ways most people never stop to calculate. Let's look at a situation that feels very normal in both the United States and Europe. You're in your late 20s or early 30s. You've done what you were supposed to do. You studied, found a job, and now earn around $65,000 a year before tax. After income tax, Social Security, and health-related deductions, your take-home pay lands at roughly $3,800 a month. You live in a decent place, not extravagant, not cramped. Rent or a modest mortgage costs about $1,300. Utilities, internet, and your phone plan push that number closer to $1,550. You own a car, nothing flashy. It's reliable, safe, and fairly new. The monthly payment is $420. Once insurance and fuel are added, transportation costs settle around $600. There's still some education debt in the background. Student loans or past training costs take another $300 each month. Daily life fills in the rest. Groceries, coffee, the occasional lunch out, streaming services, clothes, small conveniences that make life easier. Altogether, about $700, without anything feeling excessive. You use a credit card, but carefully. You pay most of it off. Still, a balance of around $2,000 seems to linger. By the end of the month, you've spent roughly $3,450. On paper, everything looks responsible. In reality, there's only about $350 left before emergencies, before saving, before long-term plans. Nothing here feels indulgent, and that's exactly the problem. The hidden issue here isn't overspending. It's how comfort slowly resets what normal looks like. A car payment feels reasonable because almost everyone has one. Subscriptions barely register because each one is small and spread out. Eating out doesn't feel wasteful because it saves time, energy, and mental effort. Individually, none of these choices feel wrong. Collectively, they reshape your financial baseline. When comfort becomes the default, costs are justified emotionally before they're examined financially. The question isn't, do I really need this? It becomes, can I handle the monthly payment? Modern life is designed around that question. Large, life-shaping expenses are broken into predictable monthly amounts, and predictable numbers feel safe, controlled, almost invisible. The risk isn't one big decision you'll regret later. It's a long series of decisions that never feel important enough to reconsider. Comfort removes friction from daily life, and friction, uncomfortable as it is, often acts as a natural pause, a moment to think before committing. When friction disappears, spending feels smoother. So does drifting. That's how the math changes, quietly, consistently, and without ever triggering alarm bells. Let's slow the story down and focus on just one detail. That $420 car payment doesn't feel dramatic. It fits into the month. It feels manageable. But over 5 years, that payment adds up to $25,200. Once you include interest, insurance, and associated costs, the real number is closer to $32,000. At that point, it's no longer just transportation. It's a long-term financial commitment with a real opportunity cost. Now consider an alternative that rarely gets compared directly. If the same person invested just $300 a month, earning a modest, long-term return, that habit alone could grow into more than $200,000 over a working lifetime. The issue is timing. No one feels the loss of future value today. They feel the comfort today. Monthly thinking compresses large numbers into amounts that feel emotionally safe. Long-term thinking does the opposite. It stretches small decisions across decades. And that kind of thinking requires intention because modern systems don't encourage it. They're optimized for the short term, for affordability now, not consequences later. Your future self doesn't sit at the table when these decisions are made. This isn't really a discipline problem. It's a psychology problem. Humans adapt quickly. Once a certain level of comfort becomes normal, anything below it starts to feel like deprivation, not like a neutral adjustment, but like a step backward. Downgrading doesn't register as a rational financial choice. It feels like failure, even when it objectively improves long-term stability. There's also social reinforcement at work. Financial decisions don't happen in isolation. They happen in comparison. When people around you live similarly, similar cars, similar apartments, similar spending patterns, your choices feel justified, not because they're optimal, but because they're common. Comfort also reduces cognitive load. It simplifies life, fewer decisions, fewer friction, less mental effort. And when people are already mentally tired from work, deadlines, stress, and responsibility, the brain naturally chooses ease over optimization. Convenience becomes the default. No one wakes up intending to undermine their future. They're not reckless. They're exhausted. So they choose what makes today feel manageable, even if it quietly complicates tomorrow.
Left unchecked, comfort doesn't suddenly collapse your finances. It narrows them, slowly and quietly. Savings remain shallow, not because income is too low, but because fixed costs consume most of the margin. Career risks start to feel dangerous, not because they're irrational, but because there's little room to absorb uncertainty. Time becomes more valuable, yet more constrained. Every obligation demands maintenance. Every payment requires consistency. On the surface, life looks stable. Underneath, it's strategically fragile. The irony is that higher income often deepens this pattern. More money increases comfort before it increases freedom. Without intention, raises don't create leverage. They simply upgrade the baseline. Better housing, newer cars, more convenience. Over decades, this produces a familiar outcome. People who earned well, lived comfortably, and still feel late to everything financially important. Not poor, not irresponsible, just locked in to maintaining a life they never fully designed. People who handle money well don't reject comfort. They relate to it differently. They ask fewer questions about whether something fits into the month and more about what it commits them to long term. The question isn't, can I afford this payment, but what does this decision lock me into? They separate convenience from necessity, not emotionally, but mathematically. They understand that comfort isn't free, it's financed by future flexibility. This doesn't mean living uncomfortably or depriving themselves. It means choosing comfort intentionally rather than accepting it automatically. They're willing to allow friction in certain areas of life if it creates freedom elsewhere. Fewer obligations, more optionality. What stands out isn't extreme discipline or unusually high income. It's awareness. They see how small, comfortable decisions compound over time, and they treat those decisions with the same seriousness as much larger ones. That awareness, not income, is what quietly changes the trajectory. Modern life didn't make people irresponsible with money. It made comfort easy to accept without much reflection. The point isn't to reject modern living or feel guilty for enjoying it. Comfort has value. Convenience has value. Time has value. What matters is understanding the trade-offs clearly. Comfort isn't the enemy. Unexamined comfort is. When everyday ease quietly raises your financial baseline, progress slows without ever feeling dramatic. And once you notice that pattern, you don't need pressure or motivation to change it. You need clarity. Clarity changes behavior on its own. It alters how decisions feel, what questions you ask, and what trade-offs you're willing to accept. If this perspective helped you see your finances a little differently, you can support the channel by liking the video or subscribing for more calm, realistic conversations about money and modern life. No hype, just clearer thinking over time.